What's up, everybody? This is Dustin from BGE's Tabletop. Today we have a really special VideoCast episode about tabletop games and tabletop mechanics. So describing tabletop games, talking about different types of tabletop games, and talking about the mechanics that make up tabletop games. So I'm super excited to have Legends of Nerdvana on the VideoCast today. So we're talking with Randy about tabletop mechanics. We share some of our favorite mechanics. We talk about how we define mechanics and how we discuss games with different people, whether you're a new person to board games or you've been around for a long time, and how those conversations can change. Before we get started with this episode, I want to share with you a few things. So our store has been open since April of 2022, so it's about 5 months now. This is our week like 5 of the VideoCast. We took last week off just because we had a lot going on with our family, and I got a little sick, so I didn't have time to edit this episode. I was kind of under the weather, trying to save my energy as much as possible. However, I want to mention that if you sign up for our newsletter, if you're local to LA, make sure you do that. And if you're not local to LA and you're just checking out our podcast, be sure to subscribe. You can subscribe on any podcasting platform you're listening to us on, or on YouTube. And then I do want to give you a quick warning for this VideoCast episode. We had some issues with our sound. I'm not really sure what was going on. We'll get it fixed for next time, but please forgive us for that one, and let's get into the conversation. Another episode of BGE's Tabletop Talk. We have Randy Wilson on the show today. We're going to talk about different tabletop games and game mechanics. Really interesting conversation. I'm excited to talk to Randy about this. Let's bring Randy on to BGE's Tabletop Talk.
Hello.
Hey, Randy, welcome. So Randy Wilson is, like I mentioned, from Nerdvana. You do some board game content on your YouTube channel. Would you mind just introducing a little bit more about yourself and your content?
Sure. It's actually Legends of Nerdvana.
Oh, Legends of Nerdvana.
Yeah. So, our home would be referred to as Nerdvana, but Legends of Nerdvana, we started this channel a couple of years ago, basically during COVID, and it gave us an opportunity because we have a collection of 3,000 games that we're trying to play through, kind of with the ulterior motive of documenting all of them before I die. That's kind of my goal. So I'm using it kind of as a way of living forever, because if I keep buying games, I figure I can't die.
There you go.
So,
there you go.
Unfortunately, the house is now out of space, so we're going to figure out a solution for that. But basically, it started because my wife was a gamer, but she was more of a into the basics, Catan and Carcassonne and the entry level games, and she considered herself a gamer until she met me, and then she saw the collection, and she was like, oh, "Okay, I know nothing about gaming. We need to expand this." So it gave us an excuse to play through the backlog of games as opposed to playing just the same few games all the time, and so now we started with my wife and I and our good friend Robert, and now we've grown to several of our friends joining in for cameos and appearances, and we've gotten to meet lots of people in the industry now. So we're growing slowly but rapidly. I mean, slowly but surely, not rapidly. But we feature games from all the way back to the 1960s to present. Our primary focus is modern games, but occasionally we'll go to the vintage vault and pull out one of the old ones, and usually try to give some kind of background history on the games too, which is fun. But we go through and cover the quality of components, because we're piece snobs, the theme, the rule book, and then the gameplay. So give each one of them scores with a standard based on Catan. Base Catan is our 5, and then we rate everything as a comparative.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. First, going off that, use Catan as your your barometer, I suppose, for evaluating other games. Oh, cool.
Yeah, when we first start out, I'm a stats guy, so it was very important to me that the scores had some validity to them. So I was like, we need to have something as a baseline that is fairly vanilla and is well known in the industry. Something that, so it just made sense that base Catan would be that median, and so everything is scored based upon that. Now, it doesn't work as perfectly for the rule book, because rule books it's the Catan rule book may or may not be the true five, but
Right.
when we're basing everything else, like the quality of components, it's pretty middle of the road. If you look at the gameplay, it's pretty middle of the road. So it made sense logically as a good median for us. And when everyone knows that, when you look at the score, it's like, oh, a 7 compared to Catan at a 5 makes sense, and it makes the numbers have some consistency.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's interesting when I think about like because I always give movies or restaurants a score after I'm done, and yeah, I kind of think about, okay, well, what would a 10 be for me? And then do I think that this movie would be like, would it be the best movie ever? I don't know if I've ever given a movie a 10 though, like for
Yeah.
me. I don't know. Do you have like
It,
is
I,
five, so five's the middle, 10 is probably
Right.
the highest?
It for a long time I didn't want to give tens. I was very reluctant, but I was like, you know what? There are things that deserve to be considered tens.
Mm,
And for the first time ever, I've got a game this year that was a perfect 10 across all categories for me. And that was Wonderland's War. That was the
Wonderland's War.
first one.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I've had several 10 gameplays or 10 this or that, but this is the first one I gave a perfect 10 on all categories. And
And
that's for the Kickstarter version.
I was gonna say, I hate to say this because we don't have the Kickstarter version, but so the retail version is a 9 out of 10 for for components, and you got a 10 out of 10 for the Kickstarter. Yeah,
Yeah,
they are doing
the
a new
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter though. I
Yeah, yep.
saw to like
Yeah,
add those upgraded
expansion.
components. So
Uh-huh. Yeah, the components are amazing if you get the Kickstarter version. I highly recommend it.
awesome! I'll have to play the game. We had a couple retail copies. We'll probably get more in when we order some more games. But yeah, we had a couple in and they sold. Cool. So evaluating on a scale. And then my other question was, so you have 3,000. Do you ever cull games? Like, do you have a system for culling games? And maybe I can
Very
define
rarely,
that
and
too. Or
it's
if you
very
want to define it.
it's very rare and it's very painful. So I think I've only culled 2 or 3 times in my history, and they were usually very old games. So, like, first culling, I pulled out all my old VCR based games from way back because I don't have a VCR anymore. So that was an easy
Mm,
call. Um, and most all the ones I've culled have been either extremely old games or games that I just absolutely despised after playing them. And that's hard because I hate Pandemic with a passion, but I still have it because
mm,
usually I keep a game if other people enjoy it when they come over. So I don't want to get rid of things that are popular among other people, even if I hate them. Um, so I keep games in stock in my house that I don't normally play. But I did call mostly older games that I knew were not going to get any play whatsoever. I still keep a lot of old games. As I mentioned, we do go through the vintage vault from time to time. We did a really good one on Alien, the board game from 1979, and we
oh
did
wow.
one on the McDonald Land board game. So
McDonald's.
uh, yeah, so we've had some couple we've already done. I'm actually wanting to get another vintage one out soon. So, but yeah, most of them were older ones that I culled. But there's probably going to have to be another culling soon because I've got the Gen Con purchases and Origin purchases are piled up on my pool table, and
Mm.
I need to find shelf space.
Yeah. Yeah. And for us, when we like get rid of games, I think now with the store, we have our lending library and we have maybe about 20 games that are not sitting in our lending library in our store.
Hmm.
And I think we're going to have to start getting rid of some of our games that we don't actually sell in the store too, because the store has so much like space and we have to use the space wisely as a business
Right,
and
right.
not yeah so but before that we moved from Taiwan to the US. I think that's the only other time we kind of got rid of games. We never got to 3,000 though. So I think the most we had, I think we counted before we moved into the store and I was at like, if you include all the like any box that also and you count the expansion as a separate game, I think we are at like 250 because I didn't want to do the math of like, okay, this one is kind of an expansion but not really because it's a standalone. So I just kind of expansions as a one unit game.
Hmm.
But we were like 250. But before we moved back to the States, we had to get rid of some games just because we filled up some suitcases and we filled up some. I don't know if we did boxes. Yeah, we filled up some boxes as shipped luggage. Well, as our checked luggage in the airport. Yeah, it was crazy. We had like three full, like one big full suitcase and two full boxes of games, but we left some behind because some were a little bit too heavy. Like one was I don't know if you played Captain Sonar. It's
Yeah,
like a really
yeah, it's a
fun
great game.
team-based game,
Hmm.
and you need 8 players to play it. I feel like it doesn't really shine with any less. 6 might be okay, I
I
guess.
thought 6 was good because I felt like one of the roles didn't really have enough to do. So
Yeah,
if you combine the two, it became it felt better at 6 to me than 8.
yeah, I would say 6 is good if you have players that are are comfortable with like tabletop games too.
Hmm.
Yeah. With 8, it's really good for people who like are very new to like the whole tabletop game thing, because then you tell them that one role and it's something that they can handle. But yeah, 6 is probably good too. But it's super heavy, so that's why we left it behind. Like it was a very heavy game.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
so when I moved to this house, moving those at that time, I think it was more closer to 2,000 games. I almost gave up board gaming. I
okay.
because I had to, we moved just in the same city, but I had to pack them all by hand, stacking them in my Jeep, and
Mm,
just haul them over to the house, drop them off, go back, get another load, and it took me I don't know how many trips back and forth between the
yeah.
houses to
Oh
get them all
jeez.
moved over.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. So let's move into our topic. So our topic is talking about different tabletop games. We've already mentioned a couple, and we talk about tabletop games as types, but then we want to look at like game mechanics. And I was discussing this with you before to kind of how do we bring up this conversation. Well, one thing that I do when someone comes in a store, or maybe if you're listening and you talk to people who are either gamers or non-gamers, and I'm talking about like when I say gamer, more like someone familiar with modern board games versus someone not as familiar with modern board games, what language. And for me, when I have someone come in the store, we kind of find like a point to start at, whether try to meet the customer where they're at, and maybe the person you're talking to about games where they're at, and then you can kind of bring the conversation wherever you want. And that's like, well, one, does that person, are they familiar with game mechanics? And if not, then we're kind of talking about like game experiences, maybe talking about theme and flavor. So what do you do when you talk to someone that maybe is not familiar with game mechanics, like don't know any of what those terms are?
So usually what I start with is I try to gauge, what types of games have they had history with? Are they Monopoly and Clue and people who've played just the traditional board games, and then if that's the level they're at, then I have kind of we've on our channel got a category of entry level games, novice games we call them, but it basically we try to figure out ones that have simple rule sets, that they're usually shorter games, ones that can easily get people interested into gaming, and from there, and we try to find ones that typically would have a common feature. So, for example, we had what was it, Cape May or something like that just recently came out that has a very much a Monopoly feel to it. You're
Mm,
claiming properties and so on, but it's a step up. So it's a good transition game for someone who's trying to move out of like the traditional Monopoly roll and move type games into something that's a little more of a modern Euro style. And basically, that's how I transition people from uh, the the classic into something modern. Now, if I know that they're experienced and they understand modern games, then we can start talking into the semantics and mechanics. Where if we look at a game, we'll say, okay, well, this one features worker placement, this one features variable player powers, and get into the more common vernacular. And there's actually a really good on Board Game Geek, a really good definition list for all the different genres, and it's also a good spot to go and look up which games fall into those genres.
Yeah, so Board Game Geek, I wonder how many
There are a ton.
yeah, I was gonna
Because
pull it
they
up.
subdivide, because like worker placement you can subdivide into dice placement, or you know action play, variable actions or whatever. There's just a variety of probably about 400 or 500 of them on the website.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up. So Board Game Geek is a big website if you're not familiar about I mean it compiles every single board game pretty much. I
Yeah,
mean, I
it's
would
kind of
say
the holy grail for gamers. It's where you go
yeah.
to log all your games in your collection. You can log your gameplays.
So I'm gonna click on one that the Fox Experiment. That's
That's it.
Elizabeth
Yep.
Hargrave's
Yep. It's
new
her new
game.
one. Hmm.
Yeah. So
I
there's
just
the game
backed that
mechanics
one.
here. We got dice rolling. So I think people are familiar with dice rolling, right? I think Monopoly is dice rolling. Monopoly also
Hmm.
has roll and move. Um, but there's some other things that like open drafting. You can kind of click on
Hmm.
it and see what that means, and it gives you a little description. I don't. There should be a way to get all the game
Yeah,
mechanics, but I
there
can't
is.
remember
There's
how to
a
do that.
master list in here too as well. I'm not sure what the link is for it, but there's a page that you can go to see all of the mechanics. So I'm sure it's off one of the top like search features.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, if you search in Google board game geek game mechanics, you'll
There you
find
go.
all the
There
game
it is.
mechanics. There we go. Yeah. So there's a lot. There are a lot.
Hmm.
So what like what is a game mechanic? What would you say is a game mechanic?
So you talk about a definition for it.
Yeah, definition or like how would you describe what makes it a game mechanic, I suppose?
So basically, it's a way of breaking down the different functions of the game into definable categories. So basically, for example, if you're playing a game where like Dominion, for example, that is almost a pure deck building game. You're going and you're purchasing. Now, if you look at Dominion on Board Game Geek, it's probably got a couple other mechanics too, but it's about the purest form of a deck builder that you can find. Whereas if
Mm.
you play a game such as Dune Imperium, deck building is one of many mechanics in that game. So when you start looking at the different various attributes of a game, all the things that make up the entirety of the game, it's a way of categorizing each one such that you can find common features in other games.
Yeah, I think what we as gamers use to reference how we feel about games, right? A lot of times we use the game mechanics. It's like, oh, this is a deck builder. If you like deck builders, you'll like this one. You
Hmm.
mentioned Dune Imperium. This is a deck builder plus worker placement, and you might like that because you like worker placement.
Hmm.
But some people then realize, okay, I don't like this whole mix of worker placement and deck builders. I like pure worker placement. Yeah. So my other question too, like, how do you decide, or when you look at a game, how do you decide if you're gonna enjoy it based on the game mechanics? And do you have like a particular game mechanic you tend to enjoy?
Oh yeah, I got several. I do like deck building, but I'm finding myself not into the pure games anymore. Like if it's purely a deck builder, I'm usually disinterested in it.
Mm,
Because you can only do Dominion so many times. Whenever deck building is a real good example because when it first came out, they flooded the market with deck builders, similar to what roll and rights are today. Roll and rights are the new deck builders, if you will, because they're flooding the market with roll and rights now. And I figured, a few years, if not less, it's going to probably fade out, and there'll be another one that comes up as the new hotness. And
mm,
but what happens is, I think naturally over time, as people start getting tired of that particular mechanic being just the only thing that's featured, you start melding it, and that's when you really get creative games. Once that mechanic becomes just one of many attributes of a game, you can get some really unique and impressive games. So I don't find myself buying pure deck builders as much anymore. Usually, I'm buying something like Lost Ruins of Arnak, or uh, like I did buy Dune Imperium. I can't say I'm a fan of it, but a lot of people do like it. So I buy games like that I think are going to incorporate a mechanic I do enjoy, and I've found I enjoy them way more. So some of the mechanics that I look for, engine building is a huge one for me. I love when I can have a personal area where I'm managing and creating things that are going to give me benefits throughout the course of the game, and it makes it a much more flexible game. I like point salad games where there's lots of ways to score points in the game.
Mm,
I don't like to have one path to victory, which is actually one of my biggest problems with Dune Imperium. It feels like there's only a couple ways to score points in that game, and it's a very low scoring game. I like where you can score lots of points, and
okay.
um, I like games where there's competition, but you're not out actively stabbing each other in the back. I like games that have interaction, but not where it's at the detriment of another player usually. Um, I don't mind solitaire type games either, but I do like ones where there's more player interaction. Um, but yeah, I think there's just a whole combination of attributes that I like to find in games when I pick them out. So that's the first thing I look for in a game is the mechanics. I do look at theme as well, but it's much less important to me than the mechanics are of the game.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, I am kind of on the other side of the fence maybe for some of that stuff. I love high interactive, high like Ankh, Scythe.
Uh-huh. Well, I
Uh
do love Scythe.
yeah. Well, Scythe is kind of like you could go through that game without screwing over other people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um though I think my theory is you need to do it at some point, right? You have
Uh,
to time it just perfectly.
yeah, exactly. I don't mind. See, I
Um
don't mind if there's combat. I just don't like it where like if everybody gangs up on one player, for
mm.
example. Because first of all, I tend to be that one player because everybody usually thinks, oh, he's gonna win, so we're gonna jump on him. Even if I'm losing badly, it doesn't change the fact that people want to jump on me and attack me at games.
Oh man. Man, yeah. So I guess kind of bringing it back a little bit too is like, how do you give new players that aren't familiar with tabletop games a frame of reference with game mechanics to get started?
Well, when people come over to my house when we're playing games, I'm usually like I ask them about their previous experience, and then I if they have played, let's say they're a step above the novice and they've played some games and they like certain games, I'll try to find ones that combine some of the mechanics that they're familiar with into another game. So for example, Lords of Waterdeep is a basic worker placement game. Uh, but it's still a lot of fun. I still enjoy that one. But if I want to take that worker placement attribute and say, well, here, this one is similar to that, if it has worker placement as a primary attribute of the game, but there's also combines these other elements in, I'll share with them the game and explain kind of how it relates to the the games they're familiar with, like Lords of Waterdeep. So I try to transition them if they're interested in those that mechanic. I can show them other ones that use that mechanic but in unique ways.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is one family we had in the store recently, we mentioned this game Dominion. They played Dominion and
Mm-hmm.
they absolutely loved it. They were like, "Oh, I want to play more." And I think that they have a bit of a ways to explore that game, right? Because Dominion has so many
Oh
expansions, so many
yes,
things
and
you can
more
do
is
with
another
it.
one coming.
Yeah, yeah. And it would be hard for me to throw them into like Clank, which is a deck builder plus you're moving
Yeah.
a piece across a board, or to do an Imperium, because I think they still have a ways to explore just the deck building mechanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even just the deck building mechanic within one type within Dominion.
Yeah.
Um, so
But
yeah,
there's games like, for example, Resident Evil or the Thunderstone. they're close to pure deck builder, but have a little bit more added. Thunderstone is probably one of my favorite of all the deck builders. It takes the basics of the deck building and adds on just that little bit of exploring the dungeon and fighting the monsters with your cards. Ascension also has where you battle Ascension or Hero Realms. Those take that basic fundamental deck building and just add a little bit, so you can stepstone them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm trying to think back to my exploration into game mechanics and where I started and how I moved from. I mean, Deck Builder was one of the first ones, and I think I kind of more explored a foray of different game mechanics because I played Dominion a lot, I played Bonanza a lot, I played Bang. So these are all like totally different games. Bonanza has a lot of negotiation and trading and hand management. Bang is more secret roles and player powers. And I guess played like Werewolf too. So again, like hidden roles, social deduction, and then Dominion, a deck builder. So I played like a wide range of game mechanics. Dove into one specific one. I guess I played a lot of different Dominions. So we played a few different expansions, but
yeah. See, I got my start way back in the late 70s, early 80s. I'd playing traditional games, and then I got in the mid 80s. My parents were always buying the things off the clearance rack for me. They would always buy all the board games that were on the clearance rack, and they came in with Axis and Allies and Conquest of the Empire. And I had never seen a game with so many pieces, so that just intrigued me, and the little tanks and the different things. So I got it out, and I learned how to play those. And my buddy had Fortress America from that same Games Master series. So every Saturday we got together and played one of those three games. And so I grew up from all through junior high, high school, playing Axis and Allies, Fortress America, Conquest of the Empire religiously every Saturday. And that's what got me into gaming. And then basically for decades, that's games sat on the shelf because Hasbro pretty much bought up all the gaming industry in the US and killed it. It was just rehashes of Monopoly and Clue, and there was no new development in the gaming world in the US. But I wasn't aware that over in Germany all these Euro games were out there. And a buddy of mine introduced me to Catan, and I absolutely hated it. I played it and I lost badly because of that. I have terrible luck with dice, but it made me want to beat it. So I kept playing and kept playing, and I discovered Cities and Nights, and I'm like, well, this actually makes Catan a good game. So once I started discovering all these Euros out there, that's what really got me into the second generation of gaming. So Puerto Rico and Dominion and a lot of those games you mentioned, that's what I started playing. And I love hidden trader games. I got Battlestar Galactica is like my all-time favorite game.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. So I guess we're kind of going into time here. Is maybe a last like words of advice and or last thing you want to share as far as like game mechanics or types of games?
Just try lots of different things. Find what's right for you. You don't have to play it but once. If you don't like it, try something else. But there's so many game mechanics out there. There's so much variety. I mean, you saw on the screen a little bit ago all the variety of mechanics that are out there. I would encourage you, check out that list, go down, click on it, and then find games that fall under that category, because you can do a search in there by the mechanics, and just look out there, all the myriad games that are out there that have that. And you'll be surprised. Some of the games you're already playing might already have some of those mechanics in them. And then you just find other ones that have similarities. And you'll find yourself quickly finding a ton of new games out there that have an appeal to you.
Yeah, totally. Don't be scared to try some stuff out. And a couple recommendations that we mentioned, like if you're looking to try a new game, something that you're not familiar with, try Dominion, because it's a good starting place for a game mechanic that is like you mentioned, pure. And then you can kind of go from there.
Yep.
Awesome. So I am gonna throw you a curveball. We're gonna play a different game because I realized I don't really with two people, super fight I don't know if we would make it work well enough. And I kind
Okay.
of thought I was gonna be able to come up with a way to make it
Well,
work while we were chatting, but I
we're
couldn't
gonna
make it
try a
work.
new game right here.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're familiar with this. We played this with a couple other guests, but it's called 5 second rule. You have to name 3 things in a category within 5 seconds. So the
Okay.
category might be, I don't want to give you a category that's on here. So the category might be restaurants, and you'll have to name 3: Taco Bell, McDonald's, KFC within 5 seconds.
Okay.
So I'm gonna share my screen here in a second. Need to go slideshow. And if you're, oh, I lost you. Hold on 1 second. All right. So the first category is going to be a practice. But if you're watching, you'll be able to watch the categories. I'm going to announce the categories if you're listening to the podcast. But name 3 items in the category before time runs out. So this is what the slide looks like. It's a countdown timer. And then when it hits 1, I'll go to the next topic. All right. So are you ready?
Yeah, I was wondering what falls under practice. So I was,
Yeah. No,
oh, that's not
this
the
is,
word. Okay.
yeah, this is just practice for me clicking.
All right.
So we'll go at the 1, 3, 2, 1. Animals.
So kangaroo, dog, elephant.
Nice, you got it. So we got 1 point, and we'll go now. Things you find outside.
Swing set, clubhouse, and sandbox.
Ooh, just barely. And electronic devices.
PS5, PS4, PS3.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that before, but
Uh-huh.
we'll count it. 3. That's 3 for 3, and then we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2. Insects.
Mosquito, fly, tarantula. Okay,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
no.
you got it. You got it.
Okay, I wasn't sure if
All right.
that counted because it's a spider.
Oh, we'll count it.
Okay.
Next one, superheroes.
Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Wonder Man.
Nice. And 5, 4, 3, 2. Board games.
Oh, Clue, Monopoly, and Dominion.
Nice. You got all of them. Nice. I was wondering if you went Clue, Monopoly, Dominion. I was wondering if you're gonna go another classic. Was Dominion a classic now? It came out
It
in
is
like
for
what,
me now, yes.
2000
It's what
or
got me
something?
started in the modern games, so that and Catan. So
Awesome. Well, awesome. Thank you, Randy, for coming on. And if
thanks
anybody
for
wanted
having me.
to, yeah, if anyone wanted to reach out to you, where might they find you and your content?
All right, so our primary channel is on YouTube, Legends of Nerdvana. It's Nerd instead of NIR. And then we're also we have a website www.legendsofnerdvana.com. We are also on Facebook, and we are occasionally on Twitter. We're on Twitter, but it's a matter we don't actively go out to Twitter that often. So I try to post out there. When I do post, at least 2 or 3 times a week on Twitter, but mostly it's the YouTube channel and Facebook, and that's where you'll find us.
Awesome. Cool. So check out Legends of Nerdvana. And thank you again, Randy, for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.